Do we have a motion to open the continued public hearing for MBTA Communities?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second, any discussion? Roll call vote. Mr. Cass.
Aye.
Mr. English.
Aye.
Mr. Lawrence.
Aye.
Mr. Skinner.
Aye.
Mr. Woodhams.
Aye.
Mr. Rin.
Aye.
Mike McKnight, aye. 7 in favor, no one opposed, motion carries.
So I think at one of the last select board meetings, or it may have been just something that was sent to the town manager's office, a request from the assessor to have the assessor create a listing of all the parcels that are 5 acres or more in the town of Wrentham, to start going through those. There's about 300 on that list. Just because it's 5 acres doesn't mean that it's gonna make it. It has to, you've got to run the underlying zoning through it, what those restrictions are, if there's any overlay districts, if there's any wetlands, all those things have to come out of those. And that's, you've got to put each one of those into a spreadsheet individually. I've not been asked to help, help. I don't know what's going to be done with that list. I would hope that it would be narrowed down to sort of, I guess, concentrate in the areas that the board and the town has already sort of identified as priority development areas from your master plan, as opposed to looking in West Wrentham, because that's not going to happen. That type of a development shouldn't be in the west side of Wrentham, because it's not in keeping with the existing sort of, type of development for that area.
I mean, 2 acre zoning down to 15 units per acre doesn't match up.
Well, and I mean, so when you're looking, because you're an adjacent community, there's different sort of requirements as to what you look at when you're looking to put this, where to put this zone, and it has to sort of be in keeping with the existing sort of development of the town. And so when I was reading that as not in a 2 acre zone, I was reading that as, okay, let's find some existing, multifamily homes in town where those sort of concentrated. Are they in line with your master plan? So that's how I went about it. But again, we need, like we said at the last meeting, something needs to be submitted to the town meeting. And I'm sure you guys would also prefer it's something that's vetted and that you also support too. I don't know what information you want me to provide you to help go through that. I'm assuming not 300 parcels, but I don't want to make that decision for you. You tell me what you want to help make this decision. I've given recommendations, but go ahead.
Mr. Skinner. And then, yeah, go ahead, Bill. Everett.
For my 2 cents worth, as I read the law, it doesn't have to be one parcel of 5 acres. It has to be a area of 5 acres that could contain 15 parcels if you can fit that many into 5 acres. It has to be 5 acres in total before it can be considered as an MBTA sub area. Based on that, I felt, and I'll give my feelings, although they're going to last until the end of this meeting, that we're amiss not to include at least 5 acres of the downtown village section. Either one of the 2 parcels there should be part of what we submit to the state. It is where we're looking to have dense housing. It fits with in all of the other things that they want in this MBTA debt housing bylaw. And I think that we're definitely not considering a very good place for a limited amount of the MBTA housing. And so I would say that if we were going to vote on a thing today, which I know we're not, but I'm going to recommend that the downtown parcels, village parcels A and B, I think that's what they are, a ZAB1 or A.
B.
One of the two of them be considered at least 5 acres of it as part of the MBTA Kent zoning.
Sorry, go ahead. Mr. Lawrence.
Yeah. I guess, the grant money you had to hire the consultant to go through those parcels for the first presentation that you had, Rachel?
Mhm.
Did we use up all of her time?
I just sent another email to see if we could extend it. I think I maybe have, a little bit more time, maybe 10 hours, 8
I mean,
hours left for time.
Tell me if I'm wrong. The impression I had was that she took all the possible properties, right? And she started applying the filters that the law required. My question is, could she take off the last 3 filters or something? Like were there ones that were a little bit more subjective? And she said, yeah, I think those are filters too, to bring it down to this. Like, is that a process we could ask her to go to just kind of, instead of getting 300, like if there's hard, if there's hard like wetlands and whatever, 16 miles from any known source of, heat or, oxygen, whatever it is, right? If we could, if we could do that process on a more like, we didn't think these ones were good, but they could have barely been construed as good, and add those back in terms of what we would, and then let us maybe do some of our own final subjective thinking, as opposed to, every filter added on and you're left with this, which is kind of in hindsight I'm sure that's how it felt to the select people, to the select board. It felt a little bit that way to me, but I didn't know much about the law when the presentation was made. I don't know, but it feels like maybe there was some decision-making there that, like I said, back out a couple of filters and give us a few more options. Like, is Route 1 really not an option, or could it be considered near a village, or, that kind of thing, right?
So if, the list came up from my 5 years being here and
Yeah.
your master plan. So just, areas that had been considered as part of some technical review committee meetings, as in like people had come up in the past for projects and this and that. So said, hey, we'll add those to the list. Some of them, again, much like West Wrentham, if they were in like an area like that, I immediately used my subjective filter and said that's not in keeping with the law, nor is it in keeping with the neighbors of that area would want something like that. Single family homes type of a thing. And then also you take that list and sort of put it up against your master plan, which in your master plan, you have several areas that you want to concentrate development. So in my mind, I'm trying to work smarter, not harder. And I just focused on those areas.
Yeah.
Because that's where the town, through a 2-year process, has said and voted on, both the select board and planning board voted on, this is our vision. This is what represents the town. If I'm wrong in that, please, I will do whatever you need. I will do to make you comfortable with this. It's just a recommendation that I think would, pass the state's review. But if you guys know of a better place and you think, hey, you know what, this one, and I was like, I said, no, go ahead. I am not God. I am not the end all be all.
I didn't mean to, please don't take my comments as any kind of a criticism about your efforts. You're as qualified as I am and more so to do this kind of analysis. I just, I'm taking from the comments I heard at the select board level and their desire to relook at other possibilities. And your comment, are we gonna look at all 300, even though we know 275 of them are just like no's from the get-go, right?
Yeah.
But there's 25 we ruled out based upon, it didn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah,
Maybe the board would feel comfortable saying, yeah, we agree. We've looked at those as a board and those ones don't make sense. And Rachel was right all along. I'd be very happy with that outcome.
no, trust me.
Personally.
Yeah, I don't take, this board is, I feel supportive, so I don't, take what you say as, we can all disagree and still go out and have a drink, I don't. I was sort of trying to give you like a little bit of a background as to how these.
Yeah, no, I got it.
And yes, I can, whatever you need, I will give to you.
But were you
And what-
clear in what I was trying to get at in terms of like those
Yes.
last couple decisions might give us 6 parcels or 18 parcels to consider instead of the 300?
Yeah, if you think Route 1 is good for families, all right, sure.
Well,
I
if you're
will
next
take
to the
that
casino, it is,
No,
but we don't own that land. That's Plainville, so,
Sure,
but-
right.
We'll put a sidewalk in for them.
A bike path
Right
to
right
nowhere.
over the bike path, right over the bike lane.
Oh, gosh.
I was thinking of something similar, a little differently, but I think you said it really well, Jim, and that is, like, there's some that are just completely out, right? And then there's some that you put through those filters and said, yeah, maybe, maybe not. One thing for me would be helpful is to really understand when you look at the filters, like, can you cross out half of the 300 really quick? And then we get to the back half, which is, okay, now there's, maybe it's not 100, maybe it's 50 that you knew based on whatever you were working on from their criteria, the master plan and others that said, hey, here's why. Maybe it would be helpful for us to just understand how you went through your selection process and whittling it down. And maybe we start not at the beginning, but somewhere in the middle and say, you know what? These were considered and here's why we didn't do it, or here's,
Closer to the end, maybe, closer.
yeah, kind of.
I
I don't want to go through
None of us
300.
wants to reinvent the wheel, and the wheel has
No.
clearly been invented, but.
Yeah. And I will also say, I've only been here 5 years. I've lived in the area for only 17. I know a lot of you have been here for much longer than I have. If you know of an area, as we've stated, you've been on the board for quite a long time. If you also have an idea like, hey, I want to check out, what about this area? Let me know, because it's an overlay district.
Can we put it on top of any of the 40Bs that we have in town? Is that something we could do?
I had her run the model on the Franklin side of town there.
Eagle Brook?
Yes, yeah, because those are all single family homes, how it was built, it's not just one lot. So each lot has a different sort of setback and requirement, and it's technically the underlying zoning is actually the C1 zone, which doesn't allow for residential. And the only reason that was put there was because it was a 40B and you can waive all of the zoning requirements. It was very difficult. You would have had to make changes to the underlying zoning, which then affects all of the C1 zone. So it wasn't an easy thing to do. It was going to require more things than it was, I guess, kind of worth. Or,
Yeah, at some point,
in my mind,
if you put it in an already dense place,
yeah,
maybe there's less economic incentive to redevelop that place to do all this. That was my line of thinking, and
oh yeah,
the law addresses that. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Would it would it make sense? We could take 3 members of the planning board, we could take 3 members of the board of selectmen and 3 members of EDC. That would not constitute a
Violation of open
a
meeting.
violation of the law, right?
3 selectmen is a majority.
Correct.
is.
It's a
And
5-member
three of-
board.
Yeah, three
Two
of, we
selectmen,
already have a subcommittee created for this too, so
we
could.
do.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if, instead of running through all of this iteration, in front of this board and then having to recreate it, would we put that subcommittee back together and have a working session to go through the logic of, here's what the law says, here's what the filters are, here's how you got to your answer, but in the meantime, do what Ms. Lawrence is saying is, let's peel the onion back a little bit and say why we didn't include, bunch
Yeah.
of these parcels so that people can get comfortable with. I think it's more education than it is anything of the work that you did with the consultant to say, here's, you want to understand, everybody else
we
wants
can
to
have-
understand.
Yeah, I'd like to just have a conversation with you offline about some of the other things that are sort of happening. But yes, we can have a subcommittee meeting and things can be presented to you. It's probably not going to be by me, but things will be presented to you. Whatever you need, it will be prepared.
That's just a thought. I don't know,
Yeah.
the subcommittee right now, I think is Mr. Lawrence, Mr. Woodhams, and myself.
With an alternate of Mr. English, if the date.
The only
does-
members on the board after today, so
Yes.
Narrows that down.
it's good
Yeah,
we
so-
didn't put Mr. Cass, Mr. Skinner, Mr. or Rin on that subcommittee.
Yeah, so hopefully, I know it was on the select board's agenda last night, but they skipped over it, was to talk about
Okay.
setting up like a town meeting, so like a public information session. And maybe that's also like a working session. They had a couple things on the agenda, but they skipped over it.
That would make sense to me.
Yeah.
To educate the public after I think the rest of the planning board understands what you and your consultant did, the Board of Selectmen does, and maybe the EDC, so that there's now an education and a consensus around, okay, now we know how we got to the answers. Let's now communicate that out and move this thing forward. It's probably, for me, it's much more around, I trust what you do and the consultant does. I just
Right.
don't know how that got there.
We just need to unblack the box.
No, yeah, that's
Oh.
fine. Again, I'm, Chairman McKnight, I will, we can have a conversation offline just about some other things
Okay.
tomorrow. But yes, whatever you need,
Yeah, I would like to connect with you tomorrow on some things, so that'd be good.
I would be all for a working group with
Yeah.
with our subcommittee and a subcommittee from the Board of Selectmen, which is what I thought we were going to do a few weeks ago, and it turned into a
Thank you.
circus.
Yep.
And I'm being polite.
Yeah.
But it needs to be very clear that that's the intent of it. When you asked me about doing that, Mike, I was all for it. But I don't want to sit through that again, so.
No, that the shells got moved on us.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
anyways.
no, I'm not blaming you at all for how that all turned out. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm more than happy to put time into the working group and the subcommittee, as long as we do it the right way. And
Okay.
and public education, I think, is really important because there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of misunderstanding out there. And we're not gonna get to everybody, but I think if we can get to a lot of people, it'll be helpful.
the person over at Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities attended the select board meeting last night to just sort of hear the comments as they were preparing a response letter from Secretary Augustus. So I can clip that and send that to you so you can review it. Again, she went over a lot of, answered their questions, but, also sort of trying to answer misinformation, I guess. But so
All
we'll
right.
get that to you, tomorrow, so you can review that as well. And I can send you the list of sorry, it's 297 parcels, not 300, but so.
Oh, that helps.
Oh,
That's-
well, see, we're ahead of the game already.
Well, I'm guessing the one that's right behind me is probably one we can knock off because it's 10 acres, but it's completely landlocked and most of it's wetland. But it's probably on that list because it's over 5 acres, so
True. Yeah.
Yeah,
you can pretty much take that one right off.
Mhm.
Are you by any chance available tomorrow at
Maybe
10-ish? 10 or 11:30, Rachel?
Let's see. Ooh, I have an MPO meeting that we're voting on tip projects.
Okay,
11:30, anytime after 11:30, 12 to be
let's
safe.
do 11:30.
Okay.
It is a public hearing, so I just want to make sure we open it up to public comment. Any other comments from the board though, or questions before we do? Anybody here from the public want to speak on this topic of MBTA communities? Okay, I see no hands. Do we want to take a vote to continue the MBTA public hearing zoning change to well, so are we not going to have a meeting on the
that's what it sounds like.
first meeting of April?
But do we have a meeting only to swear in new members? I mean,
We could, right? Or
Yeah, I don't know. When do you guys usually do your reorganization? Is it the meeting
the
after
first meeting
actual-
after,
It's usually the
yeah.
Okay.
first meeting after, yeah.
So it would be that, as well as probably voting to have the subcommittee, meet for whatever date we decide.
okay,
I'd like to make a motion to continue the public hearing on the MBTA zoning until our next regular meeting.
it'd be
April
April 3rd at 7:15.
Second,
Second.
The motion of second discussion?
Yes, I'd like to indicate that I'm not in favor of the MBTA's zoning, just so that people are clear on that. Although I do think that we have to plan for it, I don't have to like it.
Thank
Pretty
you.
much my take on it.
That is in the record, forever in the record.